Let's go ahead and call this January 26th, 2026 meeting of the Deschutes County Board of County Commissioners to order. The first item on our agenda is citizen input. I believe that some folks have just come in the room who are interested in providing citizen input. You can come on up and fill out the blue form later if you like.
Does it matter where we sit?
Anywhere in there.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners, for letting us speak. My name is Chris Kobach. I've met all of you before at some land use hearings. Jason Brothers is here. He's the applicant for a gate permit through an HOA, Eastbourne LLC. Is the development briefly? What we just want to explain is, there's an adopted ordinance consistent with state law, and Mr. Brothers and I believe that his application is entirely consistent with it, meets all the requirements. And should be approved. And we understand that your road staff has some reservations about it, precedent and workload, et cetera. And we understand that and appreciate it. But what we're concerned about is we think there's a formal process that's better to handle it than just to do a policy where you just effectively repeal it by never approving them. We think there should be a public process to bring it to you guys. The board could take input like you always do from all sources. Make an informed decision on, do you want to repeal it? Do you want to modify it? Or do you want to keep it intact? And so Mr. Beathers, I think he should have his permit decided based upon the merits of this application in the current ordinance. And then if there's future action that changes the landscape, that's fair game. So that's all we wanted to say today, unless Jason has something else to say.
I mainly wanted to attend to see if there's any questions I could address. I tried to go above and beyond and satisfy all that criteria and make it clear within our application what we were trying to accomplish. I understand viewed through the wrong lens, it could come across as perhaps not appropriate, but that criteria is very specific, and we tried to do a really good job of presenting that criteria so that it could be viewed correctly. That's really all I wanted to say, and if there was any questions that we could answer.
I'll just acknowledge, nice to meet you. We did talk on the phone on this subject, and we're going to talk about it today at the county level. And I do understand this is an application to the county code, but I don't need to go any farther than that.
I don't have any questions right now. You're welcome to. You're of course welcome to join us during the presentation, and without getting into the discussion, I don't have anything else to say right at the moment.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your time and consideration.
And I just wanted to acknowledge that you sent a very thorough email today with the actual attachment where the sheriff's office and the fire department has both confirmed that you've done everything that they believe is necessary.
So, we tried to take all the right steps.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I was wondering about that because I look where you have gates, and gosh, I don't remember having to get a permit for my gate one time. So what a deal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any other citizen input in the room? Right. Is there anyone with their hand raised online?
There is not.
Okay. And then we can move on to commissioner announcements.
I do have a great announcement. Dr. Hoppy actually got back to me because Deschutes County Health Department has done a whole analysis of the administrative burden that the state keeps dumping on us and how we can actually do the job and eliminate a lot of that burden. So she responded that they will be getting back to Deschutes County with Holly and I this week. So I thought that was great. And Holly also, of course, the other day also copied Amy Baker, who is the governor's right-hand health person who needs to be engaged with this. So hopefully we're going to get some positive answers from the OHA.
I'll just mention, I think that Jen is going to come during other items today to ask us about what we want to do about our legislative meeting. I just wanted to mention, so you have a few minutes to think about it before that, that the Highway 97 Safety Coalition that I mentioned to you all, and that was discussed during the last EAOC regional meeting, myself and Commissioner Minty from Klamath County and Commissioner Taylor from Jefferson County, a document that we've been working on that sort of explain the problem, talk about what we need to do about it, and make our requests. We're on a final version at this point, and so I believe that is ready to circulate to you all, and we would love to have all three county commissions vote to determine whether they're supporting that and signing on and adding our logos so that all of us can be carrying that document when we go to Salem for AOC days in early February, or when we go to Washington DC later in February for the NACO Legislative Conference. So a heads up on that. That's something that we could discuss during our legislative meeting on Thursday if we still have one. Okay. Nothing else in terms of commissioner announcements? All right, let's jump right into our agenda. Item number 1, courthouse expansion update.
Good afternoon, I'm Lee Randall, Facilities Director, and I'll let the rest of the group introduce themselves.
Wayne Powderly, Coming Group, Owner's Rep.
Eric Nielsen, Deschutes County Facilities.
Curtis Schwann, Pins Contractors.
And we're here today for our regular monthly update. It'll follow a similar pattern that previous ones have. We'll have an update on the project status, we'll look at the schedule and the budget, and then be available for questions at the end, or any questions that you might have throughout the presentation. So I'll turn it over to Eric.
Okay. Good afternoon. All right. So today we're actually going to start out with an update on the Fairground Solar Project, just related to this project. But first, I just want to highlight the webcam photo. It was taken last week during the freezing fog. A little different than today, but this is kind of an action shot of the isolation curve for one of the rooftop units being floated. So as you know, the Fairground Solar Project is related to the courthouse expansion in that it meets the requirement for us to have spent 1.5% of the courthouse expansion budget on green energy technology. And so this is a photo of the final installation that E2 Solar completed in the last couple weeks. It's ended up being about a 340 kilowatt system split between the conference center building, which is South and Middle Sister, and then on the separate installation on the North Sister building. And just some data for your information, the initial energy modeling for this project estimates about 108% of the energy usage for those buildings. So it's likely that these buildings will achieve net zero energy usage, with the remainder of the energy being sold back to the grid. And then the payback, again, based on initial modeling, is about 13 years for the system payback, which accounts for the initial investment of the system. So, like I said, they completed the installation. They're working through some final programming issues, and then the project will be wrapped up. So, questions?
Kind of the logic of putting solar in a remote facility. Is there any tie back financially or you know, the value of that electricity to the courthouse, you know, the energy costs of the courthouse, or is it just we drop these dollars here and it'll be the benefit of the fairgrounds?
We're still discussing what recommendation to bring to the board related to that, to the mechanism of how that might work in terms of years. It's savings that the fairgrounds would accrue over a period of time. So our CFO, Robert Tintel, and I have talked about it with our administrative team. We're still kind of working through some details of what a proposal might look like.
So there is a plan to do something along those lines,
At least to
benefit.
raise the question, look at some possibilities, and then bring that to the board for consideration.
So I mean, along those lines, I could see doing something over a, X amount of years, just because the depreciation of it. I know that, putting solar up there could be a little bit of a maintenance cost, but it's exciting having that energy created there. And the fairgrounds has got its own expense, it's been an enterprise fund. So yeah, just some of the moving parts there. But, that's back to the courthouse energy needs because it's remote, so.
And as you know, the challenge with the courthouse was the exposure and the sides of the road, so it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
a good candidate.
Oh, yeah, that's a great project. I'm just thinking maybe a little bit of business case between the two facilities. We'll see.
So how much did we spend on this? I know it was a requirement.
I have the contract. So,
Oh, you do?
yeah,
Let's get it.
the contract amount with E2 Solar was $639,845. We did spend, I forget the amount, but we spent some money to do like the initial feasibility study in order to develop the RFP.
Yeah, it was about $5,000. Yep.
5,000?
Just to do the initial study.
What's our average bill at the fairgrounds a year? Do we know?
I do not know for all facilities.
I mean,
could
we
find
get
that
one
out.
bill for that facility, don't we all? A couple
They,
hundred acres?
I believe they have more than 1 meter that serves, but fairgrounds processes that. We could get that information for you.
Okay,
As part of the system payback, the original estimate was if you amortize it over 25 years, it's about a $977,000 savings, or about 44.5% annual operating expense reduction.
Just to be clear, you said, these panels will generate 108% of the energy used for these two buildings, but we're making electrons, we're putting them on the grid, and then, that's being basically balanced out off of our bill.
Yes. Right. Okay, so moving back to the expansion, the existing renovations, fence contractors have completed phase 1 of the existing renovation. And it's phase 1 of a larger scope, but it was broken into several different pieces to allow this remodel work to start earlier than originally planned. So in the image on the left is where the white painted drywall is. It's where brick has been removed, and then behind that wall, we've constructed a new office that's occupied by Saving Grace, and then kind of an office suite back behind there, the image on the right, for state court administration. And once that was done, now they're shifting over into phase 2, which is just adjacent to that area and behind the public service counters. So you can see they have a temp wall up to separate off the work from the employees, and then they've made really good progress on demolition and are getting ready to start construction. In this area on the right, it'll be a new hearing room or a small courtroom. And so the plan is to build out the kind of the bulk of this hearing room early in this demoed area with the judge's bench and all the AV. And then when that's completed, when the expansion's done, that existing office area on this side of the wall will get enclosed and finish the back end of the hearing room. So just allows them to get the construction started earlier. And here's some images of the southeast corner of the expansion showing the progress that's being made on the exterior cladding system. We have the weather barrier, which is that gray material with the blueprint. On top of that, we have fiberglass skirts that are the kind of structural attachment for the cladding system. And then in between that, the brown and black materials and exterior insulation product. So once this is complete, they'll start on the actual cladding system. Similar on the west side, you see the cross-laminated timber lobby along Bond Street, and then scaffolding's been put up on top of the roof in order to help with the storefront installation and the cladding installation too. It allows them to work above the lobby without running lifts, and will kind of free up the ground area for them to start the work on Bond Street. Moving inside, the elevator installation is ongoing. This image on the left is the staff elevator, which is nearly complete. Once that's done and inspected, Vince will be able to use that to move materials up through the building. And then the image on the right is the main elevator shaft, and it's kind of the main structural support beams and column that's been installed in the shaft. Parking garage, continuing progress. The overhead doors have been installed, installations installed, and the main ductwork for the ventilation system's also been installed. The plywood doors are just temporary to keep heat in the building during construction. Inside the lobby, again, the storefront framing has been installed with temporary plywood just to keep the cold air out of the building. And then last week, the contractor started staining the underside of the cross-laminated timber. So starting on finishes really is the message there. The public service counters, again, starting on finishes. So there's 6 new public windows on the right with plastic laminate wood material on the outside, and then the openings will be infilled with laminated glass and a pass-through and a speak-through for talking with the public. And then there's some smaller little private areas for people to fill out paperwork. The open office, again, interior finishes are going in with drywall and paint. And then with the completion of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing above the ceiling, it's allowed Vince to come in and start framing in the ceiling grid, and then dropping in the fire alarm devices and lighting into the grid as well. Break room and restrooms, we have casework being installed in the break room, and then the tile contractors making their way through the restrooms with tile on the, like a wainscot tile on the walls and then tile on the floor. The break room also has floor protection down because the polished concrete finish has been completed in that area. Moving up to level 2, this is an image of the framed opening around the 2 new courtrooms. So the double door on the left and the right are the entrances to the courtroom. So similar to level 1, they're just moving up through the building with finishes. Here's a couple images of the courtroom. I think the bulk of the work is really the electrical low voltage and all the coordination going into that. State courts have a pretty strict requirement on their AV system, and so there's been a lot of coordination between Vince and the AV sub to get everything in the right place before the finishes can go in. So you can see the black boxes on the wall are where the new monitors will be installed. There's some speakers and other devices up in the ceiling. Yeah, partial height walls for the gallery and then the jury box are also in. The window on the right that's infilled will eventually have glass to let light in from the outside of the building. And moving up to the roof, the bulk of the roofing installation's been completed. There's still some detail work and tie-in work to do. And then, as I mentioned, the isolation curbs for the rooftop mechanical units have been brought in and set on the curbs. The equipment should be flying in
Another week and a half.
another week and a half, being craned up onto the roof.
There's quite a bit of work in between setting those curbs and then getting everything ready to attach to the units.
And rooftop boilers are in, so boilers are on the left and then the pumps on the right, which pump the main hot water loop through the building for heating. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Kurt, talk about upcoming work.
Well, you set me up pretty well. As he said, we're into finishes inside and outside. Outside, you'll notice on Bond Street, we're starting the civil work out there. So first thing will be there's some large concrete planters that are being completed, some security walls that go in, and some crash rated bollards. So big concrete structures, and then the finished sidewalks will go around that, and that'll be happening over the next month. Inside, again, continuing the finishes on the renovation side as well as the expansion side. We should have the tile that you saw there in the bathrooms on the first level is complete. And actually, the one photo we showed there, the toilets are actually set now, and we're moving forward with the partitions and the accessories and all that fun stuff. Out of that open office area, the carpet starts on Thursday. And then the polish is moving up to the second floor later this week. So making lots of progress on all the finishes. The courtrooms looked very busy in these pictures, and they still are, but they're a little bit further along. If you go up there today, you'll see painters up in there. One of the challenges with the two courtrooms is they're split up by the main mechanical shaft that feeds the whole building. And that's like the last thing that we can close in. So that's, you kind of saw a little bit of that in there, but those are now closed in. And so now we can catch up and really make progress in those areas.
And I updated the schedule to kind of zoom it into the next 6 months or so. So
Really, that's a pretty good summary of everything. The exterior goes right up to the end of March, when we'll be getting occupancy and starting to transition folks from the existing building into the new. The site work and public improvements, same thing, will go out into April, cleaning everything up and making it presentable for the public.
yeah, I think the main update here is what we're working towards is substantial completion of the expansion on March 27th. And then following that, we're working with Sheriff's Office and state courts to figure out what the move-in process looks like and everything that they need in place to open the front doors. So.
Well, it's a really good coordination and communication from Eric's group to the different stakeholders, and trying to help them help us see what they need so we can make that move in seamless and get them out of my way so I can go build the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're excited though too.
As you know, the tours we give people all have big smiles on their faces.
Yeah, doing regular tours every week now. Questions?
The like expansion moving, I mean, does that mean furniture and, you know, IT equipment, all that stuff will be in place and people will be getting to their desks?
Yeah, the systems furniture subcontractor is gonna start March 9th.
March 9th.
They've got about 3 to 4 weeks to get everything in there assembled, hooked up, and make sure it's running right. And then starting early April through most of the whole month of April, OJD and DCSO will be starting to move in, training their staff on the new area and all that. So by the end of April, they should be pretty well moved in.
The different IT departments for the sheriff's office and for the county will start mid-March and working side by side with our folks in their spaces.
Is there any chance it's gonna be done before April or August?
Small chance. Once we get everybody moved over into the new expansion, then we gotta double back into the old part, once they're moved out of our way. So there's still bathrooms downstairs in the basement that we have to remodel. There's still the IT office, which is currently the existing Sallyport. So once DCSO moves into the new Sallyport, we can go back upstairs and remodel that. And then there was pictures on there about the new hearing room, small courtroom. We can then finish that because we need the transaction windows and staff to move from there over to the new transaction windows. And then we can double back and remodel that area.
So there's a
that'll
small
carry us through July, late July. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to clarify, that's
The fact that you're working on Saturdays, did you always plan on working on Saturdays?
Well, there was some subcontractors, and Kurt, you talked to that have fallen a little bit behind, but they've agreed to work the weekends to catch up.
Yeah, everybody has a contract, a commitment, and so it's our job to hold them to that. So sometimes we work on Saturdays. And they shouldn't be whining because most of those guys get paid pretty good to work on Saturday.
Well, I was just, I heard it through somebody.
I think the big dates that we're focused on are substantial completion, March 27th, Penson's doing a great job to make sure we get to that date. And then the second is expanding soft opening, and that's the major coordination piece with OJD and the sheriff's office, so that we get to a weekend where on Friday, they're coming through the temp entrance, and on Monday, the community members are coming through the main entrance. So coordination for that changeover date is critical, and but it's coming together really well. We've had several coordination meetings with those groups to make sure that we can do that switch over as seamlessly as possible. And then, of course, we don't want to overlook the expansion ribbon cutting. That's the fun part. And once we have the expansion soft opening date in stone, so to speak, then we'll be able to finalize a date for the official grand opening. And making sure that we have all of the public facing work done throughout both the main courthouse expansion and the existing lobby, even though there'll be some remodel work going on through June and July. But most of that'll be, by that point, should be behind the scenes.
So back to the boilers photo, but I mean, tell me about the heating and cooling. So yeah, what's the main technology, or is it integrated just for that building? Just some high level points on that. I was wondering.
Most of the new systems feed only the expansion. There is some tie-ins with fire alarms and security, of course. But for the most part, it's a hydronic system, hot and cooled water to supply climate control. It's state-of-the-art boilers, so we should be set up for a good 50-year run. And everything is set up well for maintenance. Maintenance had a lot of input in how things were organized, and we have a clear path from the existing penthouse over to the new penthouse. Maintenance staff doesn't have to go through one building to get to the other. They can go up one building and get straight across to the other.
It's kind of the same technology. Is it natural gas heat and then electricity for cooling?
Yes.
And it's kind of the same technology as the other building, so
Yeah, it's
maybe more efficient. They were boilers, but.
Yeah, it's very similar. We went through different options before landing on this, and to go with kind of a simpler, less costly system, but we would have ended up with like 7 rooftop units instead of these 2 main units. So the cost of maintenance and life cycle costs would have been greater. And this is just kind of a more robust tried and true system.
Yeah.
One of the big upgrades for the expansion itself is that the exterior envelope energy model exceeds the code minimum by about 25%. And so part of the energy savings that we expect are due to that significantly improved envelope, both windows, wall insulation, roof insulation. And then that helped us be able to size for smaller heating and cooling units.
And what does cooling look like, I guess?
Mechanical cooling, so the 2 large rooftop units, there'll be a condenser compressor setup, so using electricity for traditional cooling.
And then cooling water that flows through the facility? Or?
No, just hot water heat and then mechanical electrical cooling.
Yeah, okay. That's got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we jump into the budget?
So budget update, as of the end of the last billing cycle, cost to date is $32,485,803, which is roughly about 67% complete. That was at the end of the year, the end of the last billing cycle. Contingencies both for the GC and for the county still holding strong. You kind of see there we've got about 9.8% still GC contingency. And then on the owner side, on the county contingency, about 1.1 million, 1.2 million, 7.5% there. So still looking very strong. With these last few months to go, we're still within budget and holding strong.
So I'll just touch on some upcoming items. I highlighted these for the Facilities Project Review Committee. kind of in two areas. One, what we have in process related to additional costs that will go against the contingencies, and then what potential we have to wrap up the project. And so for in-process change orders that are currently being processed but had not been finalized as of this budget update, the same ones that I highlighted about 6 weeks or so ago for the Facilities Project Review Committee. On the county contingency side, we have about 325,000 in known change orders that are in process. They're related to a snow melt system, the improvements on Bond Street, and then some of the and then some interior revisions, just general revisions, small ones that throughout the project, changes that needed to be made. And then on the contractor side, again, about $300,000 related to, again, the Bond Street improvements. As you'll recall, originally there was a proposal potentially where the city would have us relocate the water main on the street. That was going to be an extremely extensive cost. And rather than continuing with the design that we had and having to move that water line, we revised the plans, the civil plans, and as part of those revisions, we had some additional costs in moving planters, changing to some crash-rated bollards instead of planters, and some other infrastructure costs related to Bond Street. A few other items, for instance, on the contractor side, using the scaffolding instead of lifts, that was some added cost, but it also helped us on the schedule, helped us get to the end of the project and be able to have multiple trades working in that area at the same time. So those are some known costs that are in process that will likely be in our next budget update next month. And then some potential costs coming up that costs aren't finalized, but just things that we're keeping an eye on. One is some siding detail revisions as we've gotten through the process of the siding project and doing the mock-up and identifying improvements and things that needed to be changed. There could potentially be some costs related to those detail changes. The remaining remodel work will be opening up walls, cutting slab in the basement, and there's potential for some unknown conditions that could contribute to additional costs. And then weather allowances, apart from the freezing fog the last couple of weeks, we've been very fortunate. And we hope that continues just from a construction standpoint, but potentially there may be some weather impacts that we'll need to mitigate that could have some additional costs. All in all, between what we know is in process and the potential through the end of the project, we still feel that we're in very good shape related to both contingencies.
Thank you.
That's where we typically end, is with the budget update. Any questions before we close?
I just gotta say, it's great to see all the trades out there. There was about a half a dozen trucks from one company out there, the electrical Tomco, and they're just rocking. You can just tell there's people zigzagging all over the place. So it's pretty exciting to see it all coming together right now. I know that sometimes they're stumbling over each other, so it's good to say, how do you make sure they can all be there at the same time, or schedule it up, queue it up a little bit. So thank you very much for the professionalism.
And it's really exciting to see the finished building so close. It's gonna be really neat to see people moving into the expanded building and occupying that space and doing their work.
Great.
Yes, thank you for the monthly meetings. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For spending, what is it, $48 million?
$46.8 million.
46
As it
point
rolls
eight.
up.
Okay, well, the total says 48. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, next on the agenda, consideration of gate permit number G-25-01.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. For the record, Cody Smith, County Engineer, Assistant Director, Road Department. Also, Happy New Year. I think this is my first time in front of the board here so far in 2026. What's that?
You got away with almost a whole month.
Almost, but not quite. I don't get away with very much, so I'll take what I can get. Table's already been set a little bit for this discussion, so I'm just gonna kind of jump into my piece here. ORS 368056 in the county road statutes gives county the authority to issue permits for gate construction on public roads. I want to read that statute real quick for the group here. This is fairly brief. So, permit for gate construction on public road. The county governing body may issue a permit to a person to allow construction of a gate or stock guard on a public road under the jurisdiction of the county governing body. The county governing body may impose any conditions or specifications on the permit it determines advisable to preserve the purposes of the public road. Conditions on a permit under this section may include a requirement that the person issued the permit shall bear all costs of construction and maintenance of the gate or stock guard. So in 1990, the Board of County Commissioners adopted resolution number 90-081. I want to emphasize that there's already been some talk today referencing an ordinance referencing county code. We do not have an ordinance and we do not have county code language regarding gates on public roads. We have a resolution by the board. So resolution 90-81, which again was adopted 36 years ago, spells out procedure and some general standards for permitting gates on public roads. So the gist of it is the applicant is submitting an application to the road department and the final decision on the gate permit is made by the Board of County Commissioners upon recommendation from the road department. The resolution goes on to provide some standards that read generally as follows. Gate permits shall be issued to private party applicants only upon showing that the road is a dead-end road. The road is not generally used by the public. The gate will not restrict access to parcels owned by others unless those owners have joined in the request. The gate will not restrict access to public lands. And lastly, and most importantly, the gate otherwise appears to be in the public interest to allow gating. So in this matter, road department received an application for gate permit. The applicant is Jason Beathers, representing himself with Eastbourne LLC. The permit is for a gate on Conquest Road, which lies within the Eastbourne subdivision. The Eastbourne subdivision is a fairly new 8-lot subdivision, was platted last year in 2025. Currently, road improvements exist within the subdivision. So Conquest Road has been constructed within the subdivision. Upon last inspection, more or less home construction on the individual lots is just getting started. Conquest Road is a local access road. Total length is approximately 0.72 miles. Conquest Road comes off of Butler Market Road, a little bit west of the Bend Airport, and continues to the north, where it dead ends in a cul-de-sac. The proposal would be to gate the northerly 0.27 miles of Conquest Road. In doing that, that would fully restrict. In other words, there would be 5 lots that would be completely behind the gate, and then another 2 lots that would be partially behind the gate. In the application materials, the applicant has provided the following justification. I'm just summarizing things here, but is noted concerns with enhancing security, preserving private property integrity, reducing a burden on emergency services, which is assumed to mean a burden on law enforcement. And the applicant has noted experiences and concerns with theft, trespassing, illegal drug use, illegal dumping, unauthorized hot air balloon operations, and other unwanted activities within the development. Upon application, back in August, the applicant was the owner of all the lots within the subdivision. As of right now, or at least the most recent road department staff understanding, 5 of the 7 lots that would be somewhat or completely behind the gate were sold after submission of the application. And none of those 5 owners are signatory to the application. I do want to also note, it was said earlier that the application was sent on behalf of the HOA. I do want to say in the application materials that was not expressly conveyed. We didn't see any of the associated HOA materials. There was a road and gate maintenance agreement that road department staff found later, but I just want to be clear that in terms of our review of this application, the application came from Mr. Bethers as the president of Eastbourne LLC. As you are aware, I know the board's all read my staff report and some of the other communications around this. Road department is recommending denial of this gate permit. There are 4 areas of concern I want to talk through with you right now behind our recommendation for denial. So first one I want to address is the land use concern. So with this proposal, the gating of the segment of Conquest Road would create a de facto private road within a brand new subdivision, relatively new subdivision. And the concern here is this bypasses our land use code, where under our land use code in a subdivision in a RR10 zone, such as this case, a private road would only be permitted in a cluster development or a planned unit development. And I want to note staff made the applicant aware of this prior to their submittal of their land use application. So there was some communication with the applicant back in January of 2024 that explicitly addressed this, how they could create private roads in their subdivision. Generally, with that cluster development, plan unit development, those requirements in our code, there's requirements for formal organization and management by an owners association, and for the owners association to assume full risk and liability for the private roads, and that's built into the land use process. That did not happen in this case. Eastbourne Road was not reviewed, approved as a PUD or cluster development. There was no county staff review of the HOA materials and whatever other formal organization documents that have been prepared. So procedurally, road department, CDD, and legal department opinion kind of collectively is that in order to make a segment of Conquest Road a private road now, the Eastbourne owners would need to reapply for land use review for replat and conversion to a PUD or cluster development. Would be a pretty involved land use process to undo something that was just done very recently. So that was the land use concern. Second, some concerns around the nature of public roads and some public road legal concerns. So road department staff generally are objectionable to gating public roads that provide primary access to residentially zoned properties, as it positions the county to incur significant liabilities associated with the following. So first one is the concern regarding access and likewise delays and conflicts with emergency services. So even with the approved rapid emergency services or code pad entry systems, gates will significantly delay the response times for emergency services responding to critical incidents behind a gate. And perpetual coordination and ensuring all emergency services have necessary information for gate access poses potential difficulties with serious risk. As was noted earlier, and board is aware, both our county sheriff and the Bend Fire Chief both provided letters generally in support of these gates. I guess I want to note a couple things on that. While it's nice to see their participation in this matter, those agencies are used to encountering gates on rural properties and on many of their calls. Primarily, they're hitting gates that are on people's driveways. So, whether the gate's on the public road or on the private driveway, I don't think it really matters to them. Ultimately, fire department and sheriff's office are not the road authority, so they're not the ones assuming the liability with permitting the gate. We, the road department, are, the Board of County Commissioners are. In my staff report, I noted some other general concerns that are concerns we've shared with numerous other interested parties over the years regarding gate permits. Just to briefly hit on a couple of them, or on one of them is utilities. Similar to emergency services, utility providers could be significantly hindered by the gating of a public road, as it would encumber their statutory right and ability to use a public right of way for installation, maintenance, and access of their facilities. Recognize there's, an obvious opportunity for an HOA, a permittee to coordinate with those utilities and provide them access, but still a general concern. Again, us who are charged with administering the public right of way would have in matters like this. But the last one on this topic that I really want to address is the public right of access. So by accepting a right of way dedication on behalf of the public, the Board of County Commissioners has memorialized that the public is entitled to the full and free use of the right of way for ingress and egress. And while state law does authorize the county governing body to permit the placement of gates on the public road, exercising that authority in professional staff's opinion should only be done in very extraordinary and compelling circumstances. And we don't think that these are very extraordinary circumstances in this case. That kind of dovetails into the third area of concern I want to focus on is precedent. So similar conditions on several residential local roads throughout the county exist. If the board is saying it's acceptable in this instance, quite frankly, we need to be prepared to do this same activity here hundreds of more times, because this same situation, residential zone, dead end roads exist throughout our county. And countless times over the years, county staff have had similar conversation with folks that we had with this applicant up front. This is the process for gating. Be advised, road department will be strongly recommending to the board that this is not in the public interest. So if we are actually doing that, that's going to be a significant administrative burden on the road department as well as the board to process and administer an untold number of gate permit applications. Again, the road department doesn't find the applicant's justification in this matter to be unique or compelling. These are concerns for all private property owners in rural Deschutes County. Commissioner Adair, you just brought up the fact you didn't have to get a permit for your gate. You're right, because your gate is on your private property.
No, I wasn't talking about the gate here. That gate was, we didn't build the house, so I realized that.
Okay.
I just, Cody, did you listen to all those different issues that he was having on the property though? They've had a whole bunch of problems with this location, with what the public are doing. So
I think I've addressed this, Commissioner. I think that those are problems for rural property owners throughout Deschutes County. If we're saying this is how we're going to solve those problems, there's a much bigger conversation to be had here.
well, there is.
Again, these matters can or would be mitigated upon build out of the Eastbourne subdivision and by fencing and gating of private properties. I mean, some of these issues potentially is just because the development is in its infancy. When there's actually homes out there, the assumption would be that whatever hot air balloon operator is not going to continue going out there, things like that. And likewise by people fencing their own property boundaries, gating their own driveways. So I want to address past county practice here in regards to gate permits. So in the last 36 years since the resolution was adopted, there's been 22 gate permits that have been issued by the county. And under previous staff and prior boards, there were 4 instances of permitting gates on roads that served as primary access roads to residential subdivisions, similar to them in this instance. So I'll just briefly kind of go through those. So back in 1991, so this was within the more or less within the first year of the resolution being adopted, there was a gate permit issued. It was assigned to Billadu Road, but it was actually for Butte Branch Road, which was off of what was at that time Billadu Road, which is now Horse Ridge Road. So this is kind of the last local access road, goes to the west off of Horse Butte Road before you get to the National Forest land there. In 1992, there was a gate permit issued on Somerset Drive in the Somerset, actually just to the east of the Somerset subdivision. I'll note that that gate is no longer in existence. Road Department's record's pretty silent on what all went on there, but we know that road provides access to some Bend Parks and Rec land that's a undeveloped natural area that is open to the public. So that gate hasn't been in existence for some time. Not clear to staff if it was rescinded, if there was communication, some kind of coordination that resulted in the removal of that gate at some point. We just know that gate hasn't been there for a while. Third was on Berg Lane. In 1993, Berg Lane runs north off of Cooley Road. That road's been in the city of Bend now for some time, so not really one we're looking back on too much. And then lastly, which is actually on two roads, there was Stonewall Lane and Vineyard Way in 2005. These are both roads that are within the Ranch of the Canyons subdivision up by Smith Rock. Staff would note that subdivision effectively is a PUD. It's not really clear to current staff why the roads within the Ranch of the Canyon weren't developed as private roads when everything else in the subdivision, the undeveloped common areas and such, screams of planned unit development. So effectively that subdivision up there is a planned unit development. So, and nonetheless, current staff do not necessarily concur with previous staff's recommendations on those matters, as well as many, many other matters from our past that I won't get into. So to talk a little more about current practice here, the road department receives several inquiries every year in regards to gating primary access roads or otherwise dead-end roads within subdivisions. And in every case, staff's basically doing the same thing. We're explaining the process. This is the application materials. So letting them know, yes, there is a process you have a right to, pointing back to resolution 90-81. However, be advised, in this case, road department is going to be not in support of a proposed gate permit for many of the reasons I've already explained, and some of the ones I'll get into as well. And in pretty much almost all those cases, that typically deters applicants from applying. It's not the ideal way of doing things. Staff has for some time now had a desire to have the capacity to put together a new process and actual code provisions around what gate permitting on our public road right of way should look like. It's not something that we've really had the opportunity to prioritize. Obviously, with this matter in mind here, it is floating to the top a little bit. So under current staff, and when I say current staff, I mean myself. So in the last 9 years, our department has issued 5 gate permits. None of them were on residentially zoned lands. Well, with the exception of one that I'll get to here, but so Harper Road is the first one I was going to list off. That was on EFU land. That was the last short distance of unmaintained county road that goes right up to the rim of the Deschutes Canyon. There were some safety concerns. There were some concerns with people accessing BLM land across the last little bit of private property there. So there was several safety concerns around that one that the road department, coupled with the fact that it was on EFU land, single owner EFU land behind that gate, why road department recommended that one was in the public interest. The gate for Leona Park, which I think all 3 commissioners were involved in and probably recall, and there's been some ongoing challenges with that one. Pinecrest Lane down off of Highway 97 just north of Lapine, and that was one we did in conjunction with ODOT to address a significant safety issue there with an access and railroad crossing where there have been some fatal crashes on Highway 97. Simmons Road, which was the applicant was the Three Sisters Irrigation District, and that was it was actually Simmons Road and Fajur Lane, and that was effectively blocking serving as a gate to the Three Sisters Irrigation District's reservoir facility there, and was also helping address some issues with cut-through traffic on the secondary access to the Desert Arabian Sands subdivision. And then lastly, Bonanza Lane, which was done to close access to a portion of Deschutes National Forest lands where they had just closed a road and done a bunch of remediation. And gating on the county road there was significant help in deterring vehicle traffic from going off the end of our road right onto Deschutes National Forest land in an area where they'd just done a bunch of work. So was covering the precedent issue there with that long portion. So the last concern area I want to get into is just the actual compliance, this application's compliance with the resolution and what the road department staff's findings are. So, back to the first one, road is a dead-end road, obviously, they met that criteria. Road is not generally used by the public. I don't know, that's a tough one. I mean, the gate would restrict access to parcels that are owned by members of the public who are not signatories to the gate permit application. That's going to tie into the next one. I mean, those property owners are members of the public. Obviously, this gate is not preventing them from accessing their property. It's just we're pointing out that the metric used by the general public is a little bit of a misnomer. But I mean, that's a technicality. I don't want to just get caught up on a technicality there. I've already addressed the issue that all the property owners that would be behind this proposed gate were not signatories to the application. Again, a technicality. I'm sure all those property owners would be more than willing to sign on to this application. The one I really want to get to is the last one concerning the public interest, and road department staff strong opinion here is it's not in the public interest because Conquest Road would function as a de facto private road north of the gate if installed, despite the absence of formal private road creation in the land use process and in the face of all the other concerns that I've listed off here. Again, I want to emphasize that road department staff's perspective, we should only be considering gating of public roads in extraordinary circumstances. And again, we don't find that the circumstances in this case to be extraordinary. We should be, in general, we should be considering these akin to how we would consider vacating a public right of way, because that's almost effectively what we're doing here. So with that, road department is providing a recommendation for a decision by the board for denial of this gate permit application. We're also making a recommendation to the board for a rescinding of resolution number 90-081, and I do want to talk a little bit about that here. So resolution 90-81, I think I've kind of touched on some of the challenges here, and I think the applicant here in their time, them and their attorney's time when they spoke early on here, addressed some of the problems with that resolution as well that are certainly worth addressing. But yeah, a big one is that resolution does not really provide us with a formal public process for not just how we approve these types of permits, but also how and when we would rescind these types of permits, how we would deal with appeals or complaints on these types of permits. More and more, I think relying on this 36-year-old resolution is becoming problematic, and I think it's time for us to put this one behind us and based on the board's direction here, what road department's proposing is that in the near future, we would be proposing new code language that actually would be an adopted ordinance that would be a part of our code to spell out when gate permits would be issued. So in that thought, here recently, at a recent Oregon Association of County Engineers and Surveyors meeting, I threw a question out to my counterparts around the state on how many of them are actually permitting gates under the authority that were granted in statute, and if so, how are they doing that? And the first thing I'll note about it is most of them are not. There's only about 5 or 6 counties who actually, came back with an answer. And there was kind of 2 different buckets of answers I've got. There was, I'll say the Eastern Oregon answer and the Western Oregon answer. The Eastern Oregon answer was pretty much all around the same issue, grazing land. Yes, in the case of I'll use Union County as an example. Yes, we issue gate permits. We only issue them for cattle grazing. Gates can't be locked. It's just gate to keep the cows in. End of story. Baker County actually gave me a kind of surprising answer. We don't allow gates. The statute was about gates and stock guards. We allow stock guards and stock guards only. Other side of the mountains, Western Oregon, had one county, Jackson County, actually say, yeah, we're actually just kind of tiptoeing this water. We don't have any kind of written process or anything. And so we're working on some, they were in the infancy of actually putting together some code language for this. Lane County and Clackamas County, Benton County as well, all came back. Yeah, we have code language around this, pretty strong. We only do it in extraordinary circumstances. There's a whole public hearing process for it. I think it's also one generally both those counties have tried to lean away from as best they can. It's where it's really been implemented, and especially in recent years, is just in addressing homeless camp problems. So homeless camp is formed at the end of a road, or and somehow if a gate would help mitigate those concerns. That's the only way they've used those. But again, those have been through a fairly extensive public involvement process that would include a hearing. So in general, what I'm recommending, subject to if the board does give correction, we want to rescind this resolution, would be for staff to start crafting some new code around this with that framework. Several other notable issues. That resolution locks us into $100 fee for these gates that doesn't even begin to cover the cost for us to administer these things. So anyways, I kind of split off into a whole separate conversation there, but I guess I've talked enough here. Turn it back over to the chair. Happy to answer any questions, but ultimately what I'm recommending, looking for some general direction on the board, would be to on a future consent agenda place a finding of denial of the permit, and also a resolution to rescind the prior resolution, with an understanding that staff's going to come back to the board in the near future with through the normal process for some proposed new code language.
Thank you for that thorough background. Before we circle back to this discussion of this specific application, I do want to ask you, the idea of developing some kind of language around this, would that be something that that the road department just did internally, or is that something that you might, for example, engage the planning commission in, or?
Well, so in terms of leading, yes, the road department would lead that effort. In terms of just doing it all on our own, no, it certainly wouldn't look like that. The question about the planning commission, I don't fully know the answer to that. I mean, technically, this would be a matter that would fall under Title 12 in our code. Title 12 generally isn't under the purview of a planning commission. But that said, I mean, we'll be a process like that. Yeah, we'd be looking for as much input as we can get. Certainly from our emergency service provider, utility providers as well.
Or thoughts from
Couple thoughts, so this resolution is just a tool for a board, previously board in 1990, trying to say, if everybody comes in and asks for a gate, this is why and how we would justify a gate. I'm just thinking, because the state says you're allowed to authorize gate permits on public right of ways in your county. This is only county roads, I guess, just, I'm gonna think of a few thoughts here. So cities can do gates in their jurisdiction.
So ORS 368 only pertains to county roads.
Okay.
In terms of how cities do gates on city streets, public roads under their purview, I off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that question. This would
Only on
be
county
for-
roads.
Well, and when we say county roads, I just want to be clear, any roads, public roads that fall under our jurisdiction. So
Yep.
that'd be both county roads and local access roads.
Yeah, no.
And I guess you brought it, you kind of reminds me of another point I wanted to make, with that resolution, kind of the opposite is true. There have been cases where gate permits have been issued where they didn't completely comply with all the standards that are outlined in that resolution. There have been roads where gate permits have been issued that aren't dead end roads. There have been gate permits that we've issued that are for roads providing access to public lands. So, I mean,
It's just, yeah.
whether you want to look at that resolution as absolute policy, is kind of more what you said, kind of the general guidelines we followed for the last 36 years on.
On the authority the state gives us.
Right.
Yeah, so I was notified of this situation and I said, well, let's see what the sheriff might say. And I think this was, Sheriff Rupert had just started, so he didn't turn it right around, but he came back and said, oh, it's fine with me. So it was just interesting. I did do a little bit of homework on that, contacted the sheriff. I do note that these parcels are a subdivision of a larger MUA 10 property. So, we ended up in a situation where the Board of Commissioners is hearing from somebody that wants to, rezone a plan amendment, rezone a resource land, but this wasn't like that. This was a larger parcel that was already MUA 10, subdivided into its constituent parts at the minimum parcel size, 10 acres. So that's how we got here. And then, so tell me about, this is a new segment of road, is it gonna be paved?
It is paved.
It is paved now?
Yes.
How long has it been paved?
You can answer better. I could.
Probably late fall, somewhere right in there.
Yeah, I mean, that was.
Just recently, okay.
Yeah, I mean, because that in fall is when we approved the plat, so that the road improvements had to be completed before the road department would sign the plat.
So then it's a public road that's been improved to county standards with the depth and asphalt?
It's been improved to the local standards for a subdivision, correct?
And then is it under county maintenance at that?
It is not, it's a local access road.
Yep, okay.
But it is a public road, correct?
So I'm just thinking this tool for a resolution kind of gives clarity to both parties stepping into a process like this about what does it mean to have a gate? How big of a project is it to get our code package and public discussion on this? I mean, do you have a feel for that?
I mean, in terms of time and capacity, we're probably talking, it's gonna be months out. I mean, maybe this summer,
but not years.
no.
And that would be guidance by the Board of Commissioners asking for it, or just saying, yes, we understand what's going on and capacity from the road department to be able to even just pick it up?
That would be, that would be road department initiated coming to the board with,
Yep.
this part of, we
And now that we've talked about it here,
we
it's
need
just
some
gonna fit
modern
in.
rules around this thing. I guess another, thing lacking here that I think needs to be built into this too is tying, in instances where we would issue a gate permit, tying that to a license agreement that's gonna have some very strong, expulsion like, things around liability, indemnification, insurance requirements, which is also in the cases of some other counties what they require. Because this is again, this should be an extraordinary thing when we do this.
So I appreciate that Ben Fire weighed in and said it was okay, this was okay with them, and I'm picturing more of a large scale wildfire situation where the responding fire truck might not be from Ben Fire. In major conflagrations, we got structural engines coming in from all over the state in some cases. So I would, how does this work? Like, does somebody have a key, or does the fire district just knock down the gate and get in there and do their work? Or
I mean, that's always out. In the case of the Knox box type devices, I mean, generally any type of fire agency is going to have familiarity and equipment, keys for opening those types of devices. I mean, I guess to fully answer your question of, any, it could be, in the case of wildfire, you could be talking about private contractors is coming to respond. That I'm not really sure of how adept every conceivable fire engine or fire personnel that would show up there would know how to operate that. I mean, I think the assumption in that case, there's probably already some evacuation happening. The neighborhood is probably, already opened or tore down the gate themselves, but.
questions? I guess I would say I am tracking that there are reasons why people might want to get a property. I'm tracking that there are pathways. There are pathways within our existing resolution for people to get a gate, by organizing in certain ways and setting up their owners association in certain ways. I'm tracking that there are ways to address the kinds of concerns that come up without a gate on a public road. It's there's a lot of variables to consider with this. I really like the idea of going back and revisiting that resolution and looking at developing a modern code that tries to think of all of these different potential scenarios and concerns and develop a pathway or a process for people to seek a gate permit. So my inclination would be for us to not approve this permit right now, the application right now, go through that process, and then when that new code is complete and we have a format and a process for people to go through, and this applicant could come back again and seek a permit, under that structure.
I guess one thing I want to make clear, Commissioner, is I mean, right now today, what road department would propose right off the cuff would be something that clearly does not allow for gating of public roads that provide the primary access to a subdivision. So I want to be clear in that whatever we're looking at writing.
So the path wouldn't be there. The intention that the path wouldn't even be there for this application.
My hope was I made some of that abundantly clear. Our objection, our concern with, in general, putting those gates on public roads, parts of the, our public highway system that we're responsible for administering, not in all cases maintaining, but certainly administering, like, in those cases, that's where, right now under our code, those cluster development, PUD, type developments kick in. Those are, you know, those are fairly clearly spelled out. Those are private roads. Those are, you know, road departments, pretty hands-off, and likewise the board is, because they're accepting every bit of liability there when we have a process for that.
So Cody, my question is, how many miles did you guys pave last fall?
How many miles of
Yeah,
road?
did you pave
Did
on
the
this
road
Conquest Road?
How many miles of Conquest Road?
Yeah, did you pave? Or you
Um,
asphalted or whatever you did?
I mean, Commissioner, you're kind of presenting that combative to me.
I-
We didn't, we, the road department didn't pave any of it. The developer obviously.
The
paid.
developer did it? Okay, so they put the money into it. Okay, but yet it is a local access road.
That's correct.
Okay, so they assume that responsibility then. Okay,
The developer assumed the cost and the responsibility for developing the road. That's correct. The owners of the subdivision will assume the responsibility for maintaining the road. That is correct.
okay, because.
Once
so-
again, that is the case for many, many roads in many, many neighborhoods around this county.
Right, because when you said it was a local access, I'm thinking like, okay, so who actually paved it? Yeah.
This is not a special road district.
That is correct, not a
You know,
special road
that-
district.
In which case, you know, you're paying to, you know, cut and pave and, or maybe not pave, and manage, your own road. But you have not granted that public right of way to the county in the same way that a project like this does.
No, that's not necessarily the case. That's
So
some different distinguishments.
special road districts, they've still granted us the public right of way.
In most cases, special road districts aren't actually the ones who built the road. Those special road districts were usually formed well after roads had been constructed, dedicated to the public, in place as a means to more strongly formalize community-wide contribution to maintenance of the road or roads.
But there is public right of way.
Correct.
And they actually in their letter had said that they would do a pedestrian gate, and that doesn't help what you're saying at all. For people that if they have to actually go down that road.
I mean, it certainly leans closer to meeting the purposes of the public right of way, just in the case of pedestrians. But I mean, that doesn't solve every problem that I'm or risk that I'm saying this poses.
Well, so I mean, the point of clarity is appear to be in the best interest of the public. The public has right of access to the right of way, driving down the middle of a road, and Southern Deschutes County roads that have been dedicated to the public. I explain this to people all the time. You know, somebody took a piece of paper and put the lots on there, and they put a little road down the middle of it. Nobody's ever going to maintain that road unless you have a special district, but you can drive down it. Anybody in the public can drive down that road. Maybe it's not maintained by the county. And then you find these little dead ends into the public lands or a cul-de-sac or something like that. And somebody would come up with the conclusion of, oh, put a gate here. We won't have anybody driving down around this loop or down this path. But they are public roads for the public to be able to traverse. So I guess, you know, I'm just sharing the concept that to be in the best interest of the public isn't just because we get to have half a dozen lots behind the gate. So, I mean, that's where I'm struggling with this right now, where we need to figure out, because a lot of people could come out of the woodwork, just like Cody said. We could have a lot of folks coming in and saying, hey, we've got a half a dozen behind, or, you know, at the end of the road here too. We'd like to put a gate here, or here, or here. But it could start a bunch of activity here. So we're not asked to make a decision today. I'm interested in talking to interested parties all around this a little bit before we make a decision. Is there any legal, this is just kind of a big picture legislative kind of thing. I mean, there's one application in front of us.
Yeah, I would just clarify, and I think Cody has kind of clarified it a little bit to make sure that there are two asks here, and we really need to make sure that we're keeping those separate. One is the application itself that needs to be reviewed pursuant to the standards outlined in the existing resolution. And then the second component, which would in the future, if road department wants to potentially seek code changes for any future applications. So I just want to make sure that we're clear here that these are two completely separate asks, and it's not to potentially have this existing application be reviewed under new standards.
I find it fascinating that they found this. That's pretty from 1990, and that it actually has Mary Sue Penhallow's stamp on it. So a bit of history coming up, and you know, you heard why he said he wanted this, because he had so many problems. And I'm sure they're going to be building some really nice homes, and I'm sure those people really would like, of course, they can build their own gates at their own property, but this would definitely help their neighborhood.
Well, to keep those two things distinct, I suggest my leaning would be to deny this permit right now, to do the, second, to do this code change, or develop this new code, which would have very clear criteria for the approval of a gate permit in it. And then this applicant could come back with a whole new permit application if they felt like they met the criteria, or even if they don't feel like they meet the criteria, and seek a permit at that time as well.
Well, for clarity on this permit, I do have talked to the applicant a couple times, so no, I just met him just now, but we've talked on the phone a little bit. I could support this application knowing that the path that looked like he was going down is different than it was, and we didn't have this history. I mean, the professional review of what the implications are here, I understand what we're talking about here, but as I say, I mean, to find this application process, to follow it through, I'm not opposed to an approval. And I support the next step, which is probably going to be an option.
I actually would like it brought back. That if we want to look at the resolution that's from 1990 and updated to today's world, which is in some ways gotten a lot more challenging, that's fine. But it does seem like, it's a dead end. It's not used by the public, except it has been for all kinds of questionable activity. And it's not accessing any parcels with the new owners. Will not restrict public lands. So there's no public lands there. So yeah, it seems like somebody that wants to do something for their neighborhood.
So for clarity, you support this application?
This application.
And then what would you see bringing back as a?
Well, I said we can bring back the resolution if that resolution really needs to be updated.
Well, I support that. Yeah, let's do that. As I say, this path really isn't
But,
here. But
yeah.
Just the overhead of what's gone in to get here just feels like.
I know, I'm thinking like to go back to a cluster development. Oh my gosh, how long would that take?
I think it's also not I don't know if it's clear that if the concerns that are being raised can't be solved with individual property gates. There's, after this is built out, there's gonna be a road up the middle, and then there's gonna be a whole bunch of private properties. And if you don't want people doing stuff, undesirable stuff on those private properties, any one of those property owners could gate their own driveway. So,
And that's the end state here. That's exactly the scope of where we're at.
So I appreciate the concerns, and I feel like there's a remedy without setting up a precedent that is a precedent that I think is both administratively burdensome and costly for the county, and which, you know, frankly is not the right thing for a lot of places. It's not in the public interest in a lot of places to get off chunks of public road. So
So, I guess just not so we don't belabor this too much longer. I think I'm hearing general support from two commissioners on approval of the gate permit. We can, you know, I think for road department's sake, as well as the applicant's sake, we'd like to put that one to bed first. So, staff's intent then is we're going to prepare a approval permit by the board that we will put on a consent agenda for a meeting in the very near future. Unless I hear otherwise.
Well, so as I say, I mean, the reason I would support this, because just as few conversations on the phone, it sounds like this was kind of an unclear situation of the difference between a PUD and this subdivision of development. This gate permit process was offered, just in conversation or whatever, it was picked up. So I'm just letting you know, I mean, I don't see this happening again. I don't know that empowers you for the next person that walks in the door, but I mean, there's just a couple steps that got us here on both sides, it sounds like.
I would not say I've got anything here that empowers me for the next person that comes in the door, Commissioner, but I guess just kind of putting this first case to bed here.
Yep.
I think that's the general consensus anyways. In terms of the, you know, effectively what the road department would like to do now is pull resolution 90-81 from existence until we have some time here in the near future to put some more modernized rules in place for when we would allow for a gate on a public right of way.
So there would be, you know, for a certain period of time, there would be no process or no.
That's correct. Now that said, we have something come up, and you know, I brought up some good examples. We had the issue with Pinecrest Lane with ODOT, you know, where that was you know, we were having fatal crashes occurring, conflicts with the railroad crossing with Highway 97. You know, I guess the Leona Park matter could even be. I mean, if we have something like that come up, I mean, ultimately, we can bring that to the board, and for that one-time case, the board can.
Because the state's authority is still there, it's just no
Yes.
definition around it.
Correct. Well, we could clearly write the definition around it. Again, those
But
being
without
extraordinary circumstances.
Resolution.
Mr. Chair, may I say something in respect for, not a debate item at all, but just to add some value to your future, process, whatever that may be. I'm certainly here to help, and it's not a debatable thing, but
We're on topic.
okay,
Proceed.
first of all, I have the utmost respect for the road department.
Come in,
All right, to come in and
Introduce
Okay.
yourself, come forward for the record.
you have
and
to
I can-
identify yourself again.
Thank you for allowing me to chat.
Go ahead and say it.
Jason Beathers,
Yeah.
applicant. First of all, I have the utmost respect for the road department, and I understand this is a challenging application. I only wanted to say one thing, not for debate, but when I chose to develop this subdivision, the gate was never really a design element for me in the beginning. Something we considered, but not something we had to have. When I got introduced to the resolution from the road department, it was not clear to me that it wouldn't be supported till closer to the end of the process. And the thing I want to add value here is if that was more frank in the beginning, I could have completely did something different in the front end. So what was conveyed to me is that item 5 would have to be convinced with overwhelming evidence. is why I went above and beyond to approve item 5. But all I wanted to say is that it was not clear to me that this isn't something the road department would work till way too late. So perhaps in the future, if you guys pull it or make it very clear that there is no chance, but please understand the position I was in is like, we were already to the end before I knew that it wouldn't be supported. That's all I wanted to say.
I also just say something to clarify. I know Cody had talked about bringing the approval back on a consent calendar, but under the code, you do have the ability to issue conditions to the permit. So if that's something that the commissioners want to consider, even with an approval, perhaps it could come back as an action item and there could be further discussion regarding what those conditions might look like.
It's interesting. In the interest of time, it is 2:30 now. We've been on this item for about an hour. I would propose that, Cody is the person who understands the concerns about granting a permit like this the best. So I would ask Cody to recommend conditions to us that mitigate to the greatest extent possible the concerns about impacts to public interest or utilities or emergency response or other things. That sounds all right.
I mean, I don't, I'm just envisioning what content would be, so I don't mind if somebody proposes something, but I don't know what that would be.
Well, in his letter, he did say pedestrian access gate. So that could be one thing that could be clarified.
I'm just saying, in the interest of time, rather than us hashing over potential conditions for the next 20 minutes, we ask county staff to come up with some ideas for us. Does that sound all right? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Number 3, development of FY 2027 county goals and objectives.
Hello, good morning, commissioners, or afternoon.
It is
Afternoon. It's 2:30, oh my gosh, it is afternoon.
Say that.
All right, Jen Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager, here today to talk about the development of fiscal year 2027 county goals and objectives. Just a quick reminder, this was on the board retreat and we're not able to get to it that day. For those listening online, county goals and supporting objectives are set each year by the Board of County Commissioners. Ahead of each fiscal year, each department establishes performance measures from the goals and supporting objectives. And then the performance measures are tracked quarterly and updated on the county website for the public to follow. So I've attached the goals and objectives that were set for fiscal year 2026, and we can jump in. I'm happy to go through them one by one, or if any commissioners want to start with the starting point of current goals and objectives and make any recommended edits and changes if you have them. Or if Whitney wants to pipe in as well, she's free to do so.
Oh, thank you. I'm good though.
I've got a couple just kind of highlighted items I could throw out, but it's just gonna be skipping through it.
I mean, we've been through these goals and objectives a number of times. Each year making some tweaks and refinements. I don't feel like we have to go through item by item, but I'm actually, I jotted some notes down, but I don't have any recommended changes. I'm happy to let the other two commissioners kind of go through their lists. And we can discuss each item as we go. Would you like to go first?
No, I mean, yes, we've been doing this, health and safety, livability, economic opportunity. It seems like we're covering all the important things. So.
Okay, well, so under healthy people, so I mean, I support safe communities and all the bullet items there. And I mean, I support the big structure of what we have here. The third bullet talks about ensure children, youth, and families have equitable access to mental health services, housing, nutrition, childcare. And these have been efforts, but it's always tricky to say, we're gonna ensure housing, we're gonna ensure childcare. I mean, obviously, those are variables in our world. We have some effect in them. So just the words on that bullet point, maybe there's a different way to say some of that. Ensure housing is what I'm seeing here. Ensure childcare. So I don't need to go very far with that. Those are the topics that we do touch, but maybe there's some wordsmithing that could be done there. And then also the last bullet, applied lessons learned from pandemic response. Just the fact that pandemic was getting to be a couple of years ago now. So maybe there's a way to reword this a little bit. Prioritize the fact we want to be prepared with community response, emergency response events, ensure we're prepared. So maybe just reword that a little bit so there wasn't too much content there. Next whole topic, resilient county, manage county assets and enhance partnerships. And that just kind of jumps right out to me about this. Core 3, we're talking about public-private partnership. Maybe there's some other things that are happening in the domain of our services to the community. There are those opportunities. So enhance partnerships. I don't even know if I want to change anything there. It's just, I underlined it and I wrote Core 3 next to it. So that's just sharing with how that fits into our world. And then, as I say, we talk about housing under healthy people, and then also there's a whole bullet section called housing stability, supply support actions to increase housing. So expand opportunities for residential development on appropriate county-owned properties. Is that kind of aging away now too? I mean, I don't know if we have any plays that we're holding on anymore that we're like, oh, well, when we do this, we'll have a lot more houses somewhere. So just kind of the content of. So expand opportunities for residential development. So I mean, that's not an expanding opportunity, it's something. But as I say, those are just wordsmith type items, content's pretty much there already. So if we don't change it, I'm not gonna worry about anything. Just looking for conversation.
Do you have, so you mentioned 4 bullets. Do you want to propose specific language provisions that we can discuss?
As I say, these, I don't have specific changes. I didn't know where we were gonna go with this today. So that's kind of the prep that I did for this. Is to say, if we're holding on to the concept that houses are in cities and we're keeping the rural, maybe we could have to step away from some of this but no, I don't have any words that changes.
There's still a lot of county-owned property inside corporate cities. Hundreds of acres in Redmond, hundreds of acres in the Pines.
As I say, I was just trying to get conversation started with those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just trying to move it along to see if there was any specific changes people want.
I could go with rewording the last one in healthy people, applying lessons learned.
So kind of just take out that first section and that first, before the comma, apply lessons learned from pandemic response, and add in language something about preparedness forward response for community recovery. I'm making that up, but like something
something
similar
like
like
that.
that.
Just
Okay.
don't call it pandemic anymore.
I mean,
Like what we learned from the flat fire. We always have to be prepared to go ahead for the future.
we could also, I mean, I think there's still a lot of things that we learned from pandemic response that are useful, but if they're not as front and center anymore, we could just switch the order to. Lessons learned from emergency response, community recovery, pandemic response.
Do emergency
maybe-
response or
yeah.
disaster response?
Which
For
is,
the
moving the
pandemic?
pandemic in the reference to the pandemic later in that bullet, so that
Tuck that a little.
it's not lead.
So apply lessons learned from emergency response, from past emergency responses.
emergency response, community recovery, pandemic response.
Okay, so apply lessons learned from emergency response, community recovery, and pandemic response events to ensure we are prepared for future events.
Sure, and then if it reads good, we're good to go.
Sounds
Yeah, it's
nice.
just switching those two words, so that's okay. Okay. And then Commissioner DeBonne also mentioned that third bullet point down on healthy people. I remember this was I'd have to go back and look, but my brain is jogging that this was an updated bullet last year. That health services provided the language after the discussion from the commissioners, if my memory is correct on this very particular bullet. Are there particular areas in this bullet that you're looking for
Well,
updated language?
I mean, specifically, maybe dropping the word housing from that because we have a bullet called housing stability and supply. So, but I mean, when you ask somebody in health, they're gonna explain how we stabilize somebody, and housing is one of the aspects of it, I understand. So,
Yeah.
not too worried about it.
I mean, ensure is a strong word, but you know, we're ensuring access, we're not ensuring that people have housing or nutrition or childcare, all of which are gonna be provided at insufficient levels in our community for the next couple of years probably.
Well, but if we get a vibrant economy going and people are working and making profit and then the housing market starts taking off, there'll be all kinds of activity for people to be able to plug into.
We could get a lot of housing, we could be building a lot of housing and that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's gonna be able to access it. Because it is extremely difficult and complicated thing to build low income and affordable housing in this community. And the market all by itself doesn't fix that, no matter how strong it is.
So one suggestion on the table was to remove the word housing there.
I don't support that.
Yeah, not a problem,
I'm just looking at the current performance measures that mention this very particular bullet. There's 3 of them. None of them directly in their objectives mention housing.
Yeah, so I mean, it could,
You know, childcare is not something that you're actively engaged in providing.
well, we would invest in it a lot.
And we've invested a lot in housing.
Millions.
So I guess, yeah, any other project type work, you know, we're gonna be finishing a courthouse, you know, fiscal responsibility, have the capacity to be able to invest in the next big thing, you know, I think, you know, that site plan at the public safety campus, there's like, what, $80 million worth asks or something in there, right? Some big number. If you come up with a downtown campus plan, I'm sure there'll be some X amount, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20, $50 million project we wanna do if we look at that. So I'm just thinking, is there a way to mention in goals and objectives that we prepare for the next big capital or something like that?
So that could fall under Resilient County, which is sub bullet, promote policies and actions that sustain and stimulate economic resilience and a strong regional workforce. I heard several different ideas there of downtown campus plan.
We have this bullet under service delivery. Preserve, expand, and enhance capital assets to ensure sufficient space for operational needs.
Well, so maybe we're switching gears there, cause I mean, let's go expand and enhance, but we need money. So that's kind of where I was coming from, you know, how are we gonna plan for big expenditures? I guess that was the kind of the concept I was just trying to share.
Well, it says maintain strong fiscal practices to support
Yeah.
short and long-term county needs, right underneath it.
So we could more explicitly try to connect those if you like, but I mean, we need to maintain strong fiscal practices for other reasons too, besides capital projects. But you feel like between those two bullets, we're kind of the spirit of what you're saying is
Read into it. I don't have anything else.
So far, the only direct change I'm clocking is switching emergency and pandemic.
Exactly.
These
Okay.
are
It's a
pretty
big
good.
one.
Yeah.
We should talk about it for another hour and see where it goes.
So I'll make
Do you
that,
have other
No,
specific language changes that you're?
I think we've,
we're good.
yeah.
Okay. Do I need to come back? I'm asking the powers to be over here. Okay, great. I'll make that change and then we'll post it. And,
Just, well, route it for kind of final approval.
Yeah. I'll send it to you guys as a
Yeah,
BCC.
just- yeah,
Yep, so you have
so they
eyes,
can-
yeah.
Sit down with it or whatever, just one more last set of eyes.
Great, we can do it. I can put it on as a one-on-one agenda for Nick.
Yep, yep.
Okay, great. We'll do that.
I wouldn't take this as I'm not disappointed that we're not changing very much. I think that's a reflection of,
Fine.
good past work and the timelessness of some of our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Item number 4, treasury. We are, sorry, we're way behind time, so.
That's okay. I was
I
standing
gotta
by.
get out of here
I'll
at
be quick.
3:30.
What's that?
I gotta get out of here at 3:30.
Okay.
So no more than 45 minutes.
You don't need to worry about that with
We
me.
got item 5 and an executive
Okay.
session.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Bill Coon, Schutz County Treasurer. Thanks for allowing me to present the December Treasurer's Report. What I typically do is take a few minutes to provide a high-level overview of current economic conditions. I thought I'd lead off with, although it's not widely discussed right now, we are nearing another possible partial government shutdown this weekend based on a pending Senate vote this week, which must occur by January 30th. There are 6 separate funding bills which fund DHS, the military, various government agencies, and a wide array of federal grants. And it's already been passed in the House, but it's important in the Senate because they require 60 votes while the Republican Party holds only 53 seats. At the time, it appears that Democrats are only opposing the Department of Homeland Security bill, but all 6 votes are interlinked right now. So there's been attempts to unlink them and be able to vote on them separately, not likely to occur before the end of the week though. This partial shutdown is not expected to have the same impact as last fall, as lawmakers have already passed several bills to fund the government, the majority of the government through September 30th. The departments that are potentially being impacted by this are defense, transportation, housing and urban development, health and human services, labor, and education. And it's a $1.2 trillion funding package. So stay tuned on that. Getting back to the rate environment, the next Fed meeting is actually the day after tomorrow, where the committee is expected to hold rates steady. I saw something this morning that they expect like less than a 10% chance that rates would be lowered. And this is after reducing rates by 25 basis points at the December meeting. Although the market is still expecting 2 rate cuts by year end, the first rate cut in 2026 is not expected until, I believe, the June meeting. And concerns still exist in managing the delicate balance between a lack of momentum in hiring versus still elevated inflation levels. The latest CPI report for December showed inflation rose at a 2.7% annually, which was in line with analyst expectations. Many consumers are feeling the pressure with food prices jumping 3.1% last month, accelerating from a 2.6% increase in November. The good news for the year is that inflation stayed below the 3% threshold for the entirety of 2025. So while it hasn't spiked, they haven't been able to bring it down to that level that they expect to be more sustainable. The tariff impact on inflation remains muted, as many retailers right now are choosing to absorb some tariff costs rather than passing them on to consumers. The December jobs report shows the US only added 50,000 new jobs in December, while the unemployment rate actually went up slightly to 4.5%. Over the last few months, roughly a quarter of all unemployed Americans are now considered to be long-term unemployed, meaning that they've been out of work or looking for work for 27 consecutive weeks or longer. This equated to roughly 400,000 workers. While the official December Producer Price Index has not yet been released, it's actually scheduled for the end of this week, but it's expected to rise 0.2% with a year-over-year increase of 3.3%. This combination of firm price pressures alongside a cooling labor market presents an unsavory trade-off for the Fed as it navigates the rate environment into early 2026. It should be noted that with the delayed release of key economic data during the government shutdown last fall, there is likely to still be some noise in the monthly reporting data over the next few months. So just be aware that there may be some adjustments over the next 30 to 60 days as new information comes to light. The most recent bellwether 10-year US Treasury yield is at 4.25%, which is up about 5 basis points over the past month. This is important as most long-term mortgage rates are priced based on this index. While short-term rates have been cut, we are starting to see some longer-term yields, which is more indicative of inflation in the coming year. For perspective, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is currently at 6.2% today, but does remain somewhat elevated from a year ago. Over the past few months, I've been tracking the Consumer Confidence Index with the December rate increasing slightly from the prior month. Overall, the index reflects a cautious but resilient consumer outlook where the consumers appear to be focusing on personal finances while remaining uncertain about the broader economic landscape. In December 2025, housing starts increased by 16% compared to the prior month, but overall starts for the year declined 5.71% for the year. This increase in starts during December may indicate a shift towards more favorable conditions for builders and buyers as the market adjusts into 2026. At a regional level, I typically provide data on various markets within Deschutes County. The December Bend single-family residential market revealed a median sales price that declined slightly to $686,000 for the month of December, which was down from $698,000 in November, so down just slightly. With 126 sales for the month of December, 31 of these sales were above $1 million, and 27 of these were cash sales. It's interesting to note that days on market for sold properties remained extended at 53 days, up considerably from the seasonal low point of 21 days in July. Inventory levels have dropped to 2.5 months supply of homes currently listed. And I will also note that Bend area single family residential building permits stayed steady at 31 for the month of December compared to 26 for the prior month. Redmond statistics saw a median price of $508,000 in December, which was essentially flat with $510,000 in November. Redmond area permits stayed steady at 19 for the month, which compared to 18 for the prior month. Sales in the Redmond market, again, have been relatively stable over the past few months, and this is also kind of a function of increasing economic growth in the area as well. Looking at other markets within Deschutes County, Sisters Market had an $800,000 median sales price on 11 sales. Sun River was at $1.3 million median sales price on 9 sales, and La Pine was at $375,000 on 8 sales. So I'll move into the December Treasurer's Report unless there's any questions.
How many were in Sun River? How many sales did you say?
Sun River sales. 1.35
Yes.
was the median sales price, and that was based on 9 sales
Okay.
for the month. So in December, the portfolio balance was $379.2 million at month end, which was a decrease of $7.3 million from November and an increase of $13.5 million from last year. And this increase month over month, the decrease was primarily due to timing of incoming tax receipts. Net investment earnings were $1,278,000 for the month, which was 100,000 lower than November's earnings, but 106,000 higher than a year ago. And as I've indicated, we are starting to see the impact on monthly earnings from overall reductions in our portfolio balance and also declining rates as well. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. As I indicated, the LGIP rate dropped to 4.25% for the month of December. And then we were also notified that this rate declined to 4.10% on January 14th. So again, we're starting to see declines in our short-term funding rate. And following suit, our First Interstate Bank investment rate in December remained at 3.85%, but it was also lowered to 3.65% effective January 6th. These rates are reflective of recent Fed rate cuts and also the overall declining short-term investment yield. Overall portfolio yield slipped to 4.04% for the combined portfolio, which was down from 4.10% in November. And I've been very proactive with the board regarding my forecast that we achieved a peak in portfolio yield for this rate cycle 7 months ago, which has been impacted by recent declines in yields on long-term investments and also what's happening with our short-term investment yields as well. During the month of December, I made $40 million in investments. And the 5-year maturity distribution schedule reflects these recent investments with maturities that have now extended out beyond 3 years.
Question.
Sure.
So a moment ago, you said the rate, we hit peak investment opportunity in this rate cycle. When you say that, are you referring to kind of like?
Yeah, overall
We're waiting for
rate
the feds to come
trends
down
that
and
we are
that
in
slow
a.
multi-year.
You're absolutely correct. With what the Fed's doing right now to lower short-term rates, it's also having an impact on long-term rates as well. So as we invest out, we're seeing rates that are anywhere from 50 to 60 basis points lower than where we were a year ago at this time. So when I'm investing out 3 years, we're seeing a significantly lower yield available today than what we were available to lock in a year ago.
But I was just kind of trying to understand more when you say the rate cycle.
Yeah.
It is kind of the big picture, multi-year up,
The
multi-year down.
ebb and flow of rates, you're absolutely correct. And this, a lot of it starts with how the Fed impacts short-term rates, which is really the only tool that they have available in their toolbox to combat inflation. So we are in a declining rate cycle right now, not to say that that might not turn and spike depending on. Yeah.
Some people want it down, some people think it stay where it is.
Yeah, exactly right. But where we're at in the current rate cycle, it is impacting kind of where we are with the overall portfolio yield that we're able to generate. So anyway, the average time to maturity is now pushed out to 1.42 years. And at the end of, a few months ago, we were down roughly at about a year for our average time to maturity. So we have been able to push out that beyond a year. And this also provides a buffer against near-term rate volatility over the next few months as well. So we've been able to lock in some reasonable returns, but also pushing our average maturity, time to maturity out to almost a year and a half. So any questions regarding my report?
So whenever I see the 3-year portfolio balance, you always start right off with $13.5 million more than last year at this time. I always think of, kind of that slope is the growth of Deschutes County proper, it's just kind of.
And there is still some residual funds within the portfolio dedicated to courthouse funding, where we're down to, I think, about $5 million now. So it's a very minimal amount.
So that slope's probably getting a little bit flatter than it had been in the last 10 years too.
Yeah.
Just kind of the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Did I do okay on time?
You did great, but I guess we don't have any gold funds.
Good questions, yeah.
Thank you.
Gold funds.
Oh, yeah, she said invest in gold.
That's a finance report.
How about crypto?
Well, gold is, you can see it, right, Robert? You can see gold.
Hold it. Yes. And silver, right?
Okay,
Yes,
good morning,
Silver's over
or good
here, right?
afternoon. I heard morning earlier, right? So good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. Today's report is for the period, financial report is for the period December 31st, 2025, halfway through the fiscal year. This discussion, these reports that you have in front of you really focus on the budget, the fiscal year 26 budget, how we are comparing ourselves to this year. But as you may recall, the board held their annual retreat on January 15th. And then on January 16th, we had the mid-year budget meeting. And during those meetings, the board and the budget committee heard really of the financial challenges that many of our departments, various departments, are facing in the overall budget process and planning for fiscal year 27. So between the two meetings, the board heard from Road, Community Justice, Juvenile Health Services, Sheriff's Office, CDD, Assessor's Office, and Solid Waste. I mean, obviously, you were all there, you all remember, but just want to remind you that we did really focus, those meetings were focusing on the higher level, what is the longer term impact of some of these decisions. So the departments highlighted their opportunities and challenges and discussed state and federal funding challenges as well. And many discussed reducing the vacant positions that they have open. Some departments spoke to how they're making operational changes in the current year to assist with budgeting for the next fiscal year. While this month's financial report continues to be on target overall when comparing to our actual expenditures to budget, the focus of departments is looking at operational stability and funding challenges as were discussed in those meetings. I just say that as a preface to, again, when we look at a high-level overview of these financial reports, again, it's because we're just comparing how are we doing compared to budget. And again, overall, we're on target with budget. The projections for most funds have not changed significantly. So I'm not going to go over every single fund because the year end is there. Just highlight a few important or changes that were made compared to last month's report. But again, just because we're saying, yes, we're doing well on this year's, compared to this year's budget, again, it's not taken away from the forecasting and long-term planning for departments in future years' budget. And with that, on page 51 in your packet, we have the memo. It starts off with general fund. Again, both revenues and expenditures are in line with last year's actuals and we're on target for this year for the budget. Point out on the dashboard graph, the revenue graph has reached its peak in November and the remaining months are going to be lower. And that's that bottom monthly revenue graph again, because tax revenues come in November and we know that's the peak for that time.
But I seem to get the sense that we actually didn't collect as much money as we might have thought. The revenue is down, what is it, to over 2 million from prior year? I mean, somehow I saw you made a statement somewhere in this.
And it could be, and that's all revenues combined. So,
Okay.
but our property tax revenues are, they are on target where we are. In fact, I mentioned earlier today, we did just mail out our tax statements for the trimester that's due in February, mailed out about 11,400 statements. And that's about on average that we send out for the trimester for those who didn't pay in full by the full November timeline to get their 3% discount. So
Where does, PILT goes into our general fund, or does it go into a separate?
PILT is broken out into different funds. The majority goes to the road fund and also natural resources. General fund typically gets $500,000. This current fiscal year, it received 1.1 million because we received a $600,000 additional over what we budgeted. So between us and roads, we worked out, given the challenges in the general fund, the current year is a one-time addition. The general fund received more in that fund.
And PILT lands, does it land in general fund and they get transferred out, or is?
When it comes in, we code it out directly to those three funds.
Then the title on page 53, you've got November on it. I don't know if you guys caught that already.
No.
Isn't that supposed to be December?
It should be, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So page 52, back on the FTE position control summary. So this overall in the bottom, the total FTE reduction from last month, the net reduction is 10 FTE. 1 FTE actually increased for the justice courts. You may remember that resolution the board passed, but it was a reduction by 11 for the sheriff's office for eliminating their vacant positions. So you'll see now in the middle of the report, the sheriff's office vacant for December was at 21.5, where last month they were at 33.5. As the sheriff mentioned during the retreat, their target is 251 positions. So their unfilled went down this month. Next month report will report the health services reduction of 10.35 FTE and juvenile community justice, their reduction of 6.6 FTE. If you remember, the board approved those, but those were effective January 1st. So it's not reflective in this report, but you'll see that next month. And
How many is juvenile going down? Did you say 5?
6.6.
6.6.
Yep, and 10.35 for health services.
Right.
So yes, the next page 53 in your packet is the December personnel and overtime report. Again, the total overtime budget is about 3.7 million and actuals at this point is 1.6 million through December. About 43% of the budget, which again, we're 50% through the fiscal year. So overall it's less. And the sheriff's office again does make up the majority of that overtime. They're at 47% of their budget. Again, that's close to, but less than the 50% for the half of the year.
And that might be dialed in because he was explaining how he's able to fill all the shifts with that extra person. Yeah, maybe that'll just start falling off, would be very exciting.
Right. As he mentioned, they spend a lot in overtime, and so they're
Yeah.
trying to manage that effectively. Page 58 in your packet, skip to that for the general fund. Revenues and expenditure projections are similar to last month. One change, the major change in the revenues was we did receive an additional 500,000 in property tax revenue just because of the timing. Not all of the revenues were received in November, so that was the biggest bump in the revenues. It didn't change our year-end projection, but just the actuals came in higher. And as far as transfers down below in the general fund,
No, I was putting on number 8. You said county is expecting higher than usual penalties from late filings.
yes.
So that means somebody is not paying their property taxes.
Those were for people like personal property taxes when you file your reports. And if you don't file them on time, then you get a late fee separate from,
Property taxes.
yeah.
Yeah, I sat by somebody who was furious with us.
Yeah.
He said he's gonna move everything to Crook County. I mean, and businesses can do that.
Yeah. Down in transfers, the only thing that changed there is the budget amount you'll see in the middle column, 18.4 million. That increased, the budget amount increased by 1.3 million as a result when the board approved all the supplemental budget adjustments. And that was for the general fund transferring to fund 090 for the ARPA expenditures that are budgeted and planned on being paid out of that fund. And the PILT total we received, just to follow up on that question, was 3.9 million total, and 2.4 million goes to the road fund and 424,000 in natural resources. And I mentioned the general fund gets 1.1 million in this current year. And we are still waiting. Chris mentioned even last couple of weeks ago that we're still waiting on Congress to pass the PILT funding or for the president to sign it. So we'll see how that goes.
Built or for the SRS?
PILT. Still waiting for the PILT. SRS was passed. Yep.
But the PILT is now passed as well, just waiting for signature.
That's the last I heard, yes. Page 60 juvenile fund, their projections didn't really change a lot from last month, but again, this is reflective of their budget adjustments. They reduced their program expenses by 382,000. And again, the less 6.6 FTE is all built into their projections. TLT fund, page 61 in your packet, fund 16170. The only thing that was updated in the projection was the interest on revenues. We did increase that by 10,400 now is the variance there. So we're expecting about $10,000 more than what we budgeted for the interest revenue. I do want to update the footnote under A at the bottom. It has lodging tax revenue. At the time this report was prepared, we didn't have the final numbers for December. So now that we do for December, lodging tax revenue is up 4.9%, so slightly lower than this is, and 6.6% compared to fiscal year 26 budget. So the net in the December increase, it was flat compared to last year. And again, these are November activity that's reported in December. So in November, it was up 9.4%, but in December, it was essentially flat, if you remember seeing those reports out. So we'll obviously see how the next month comes in as well.
So the really bad snow month.
It really is.
Do not know yet.
Yes.
No one's gonna shake out.
Or transient lodging promoters or business central organizations. So the best thing you do is make sure the visitor experience is the top tier visitor experience, even if there isn't snow. So they have a plan B, which is just make sure it's a very inviting, professional environment for tourism without big snow.
That's great, but freezing fog and no snow is not what people come here for.
Not a good combination. I'm gonna just flip past these next few pages because all the projections are similar to last month, not a lot of activity. Go to page 69 in your packet, which is Health Services Public Health Fund 274.
I'm just
Oh, yeah.
wondering on page 65,
Yeah.
there's, they have a variance of 3.8 million plus. So when are they gonna come to the commissioners with that information? It said they're coming to us.
The OHP reserve, which,
Well, the variance, just wondering. They have the information?
on their transfers.
Right, that 3.8 million. They'll be coming to
Yes.
the budget
Yeah.
for board consideration. I just wondered
Exactly, yeah,
when.
I,
Sometime soon?
yeah, I would have to get with them when, but obviously it would be, before they spend it, probably when they know what their year-end projections will be. That's sometimes typically like in personnel too, you'll see that their projections for year-end are higher than what their current budget is, but they're still waiting until when we'll come to the board for the supplemental budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Obviously, because they transfer usually from their OHP reserve to their operating funds, and that's where the funds would go. Health Services Public Health Fund 274 on page 69. So overall, their ending fund balance is $300,000 less. They did receive $200,000 in less revenue. They updated their projections there and increased their expenditure projections by $100,000. So that net is $300,000 of their projecting and ending fund balance at 2.8 million. Next, page 70, Community Development Fund 295. And you all get their reports as well. Permitting volumes through December continue to trend in alignment with the activity from the 2014-2015 period. And they did mention in the coming months, the counties, you might have heard that you're aware, County Natural Resources Department will integrate into CDD's planning division, and Natural Resources has 3 FTEs. So that'll be a transition, and we'll be planning for that for the next budget year as well. On road, I did mention they received the 2.4 million in PILT, and that is in this budget here. That's that second line item down from actuals on federal PILT. Solid Waste, page 75. Your packet, Fund 610. The change from last month was in their state grant revenue, an increase of 233,000, and that's halfway through down the line with resources. Item D, 233,000, you'll see that there. Otherwise, for that fund, not a lot of change. Parent Expo, Fund 615, page 76. This month's report, December, it now reflects the budget adjustments that the board had previously approved. And again, that had to do with reducing the revenue due to the events production revenue and the corresponding expenditures that they're not spending as well. So the reports reflect that. And the rest of the funds through here are, the projections are very similar to last month or right on to what they were. I'll just highlight page 83, Fund 675. Again, the good news is the actual total fund balance in the health benefits fund still remains at a good level at 17.6 million. We are expecting that to go down by the end of the year, at least to about 13.4 million, but we are continuing to monitor the expenditures as they come in.
Such a better problem to have.
It is.
It is interesting though, looking at that fair report, just for the year. And we still lost like 100,000 on the fair in 25. And we lost, what is it? The net fair was like 244,000 the prior year.
Yeah, and it also depends how much they
Oh, I guess it's 131,000 projected loss.
transfer out, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, have other items before we go into executive session?
Hello again.
Let people know we'd be talking about the legislative.
Yeah, I saw that. I was listening online. So just a real quick update. I got an update this morning from our lobbyist. OLS is not going to publish bills until Wednesday, maybe even Wednesday afternoon. They're not going to be available on Bill Tracker until Thursday. As I mentioned before, we have switched our legislative update meetings to be weekly on Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. So we will not have a Bill Tracker report for Thursday. So just coming before you to see if you want to postpone or if you want to just cancel that meeting for this Thursday, and then next Thursday, clearly session will have started and we'll have bills to review. I did reach out to Doug several times this morning, but I think he's in the thick of it, so I haven't heard back from him. But I'm not tracking anything urgent. After I was gonna come before you, I received the email from Commissioner Chang, briefly mentioned it, the US 97 letter. So I could send that out and that could be something that we could talk about, but at this juncture, we have all the department heads coming on that ledge update meeting on Thursday without really bills to specifically track. So just wanted to put that out there to see what your preference is for this meeting, for the Thursday meeting.
Is it possible department heads are going to be kind of more up to date on certain bills than we are and wanna give us the heads up on things?
It's possible. I
Without
would say the main priorities from the county, we have been in constant contact with the department heads through coming before with the commissioners, through Doug, our lobbyist, with them going over. We know Christody was over last week, I think it was. So I think the very beginning key issues that we're tracking, everyone's pretty well aware of, including the commissioners, just from having Doug give that 45-minute update last Thursday. I think that was, as far as I know, the most up-to-date place where we stand with that ledge update, but happy to have people come and on that call as well. And then another option for that letter is I could send that draft letter out, so commissioners have time to review it and we could put it on the agenda item for the following Thursday, or I could come back before you next week on the 4th to discuss that letter as well. I read through your whole chains. I wasn't sure the sense of urgency there, but I think we have a little bit of time, but want to get ahead of it.
Yeah,
Is kind of where I landed there.
I mean, it would be great to have a final document by February 9th when commissioners go to AOC Ledge Day.
So we could talk about it on February 4th and or February 5th. So February 4th, BOCC meeting, February 5th, the next ledge update meeting.
February 4th would be good.
I'll put that as an agenda item then to talk
Yeah,
about.
we don't need to have a meeting this Thursday, so that way.
The leaning is no meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So we'll cancel that. I'll put the US 97 letter on the agenda for February 4th, and then we'll keep the February 5th ledge update meeting. Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I will be attending AOC on the 9th and 10th, Monday, Tuesday. Also this afternoon, I am gonna go back up to Redmond for the Coordinated Homeless and Regional Housing Council meeting. I'll just be in the room there and we'll follow that topic. Tomorrow, we're having a public or just public-private partnership kind of discussion with Core 3 to see if we could have some kind of a partnership that can come together. So it's a Core 3 meeting tomorrow on that, just some of the folks that are engaged.
Suzanne, do you have any other items?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the Crow and Regional Housing Council meeting as well. I'll be there. Else, we can go to executive session.
Oh, I do wanna clarify, they're saying about that we've extended the TSSA, but I extended it with the fact that we weren't gonna allow any more people in, and everyone seemed to agree with that comment, but yet I didn't see it anywhere in the news article. So, that should come to us for a vote, correct? The TSSA extension?
I have to check with Eric and Christie. I'm not sure if that's coming forward.
Okay, it needs to say we're not going to take any more people on the document or I won't sign it. Because everyone agreed at that meeting and yet no news picked up that clarification.
We did put it in our media release, right?
I didn't hear it when I heard the news.
No, I mean the media release that we put out about TSSA.
I think it was a joint release.
I'm looking now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I hear. So I'll
Okay. Because I loved how they did the 40 acres with the little clusters. That was clever.
Are we ready for executive session?
I'll read the statement. The Deschutes County Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. The specific authorization for this executive session is ORS 192.6602D, which allows the board to meet in order to discuss labor negotiations. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may only report that the board met in executive session and the identified basis for meeting in executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decisions will be made, and at the conclusion, we will open the doors and invite the public to back into the meeting.
We're out of executive session. People are breaking up pretty quick. Commissioner Chang's already stepped away. Please proceed as discussed. Is there anything else for this meeting? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.
Oh my gosh. That's interesting.